Biotech. Sounds futuristic, but it's been part of our culture for a very long time, and it might just be the answer to the climate and biodiversity crisis that threatens our very existence. But how do we revive our exhausted soil, restore our forests, clean our rivers and oceans, remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere? Technology has transformed living standards across the world. It's also been a major driver of climate change. But the same tools that contributed to the crisis may also hold the key to solving it. Perhaps we just need to see technology through a different lens. What if technology worked with nature?
Nature is really fascinating in the way that it has all these solutions to pressing issues that humanity is facing today.
What if technology was part of nature?
Nature-based solutions were the original technology. We're just now beginning to realize it and use it.
Could a different type of technology be the answer to the crisis we're facing?
We're in a biotech revolution.
This is biotechnology. Okay, before we go any further, let's define our terms. Biotech is using living cells and bacteria to make things.
We are utilizing a technology that has existed for thousands of years. Bacteria have done their thing on this earth for a long time, and we're taking that ability and creating something with it.
When farmers selectively bred their crops or used fermentation to make cheese, they were shaping biology to meet human needs. This is biotech in its earliest form, using living systems to solve problems. Things accelerated in the 20th century. In the 1970s, scientists developed the tools to splice DNA, giving rise to genetic engineering. By the 1990s, pest-resistant crops were being planted on industrial scales. Today, the field has evolved further. We can edit genes with precision, program microbes to produce fuel and eat plastic, and even design new organisms. We can think of it as a toolkit that uses living things rather than the living things themselves. One form of biotechnology can look very different from another. It all depends on its purpose. It can use living organisms, like bacteria, fungi, or plants. Parts of living organisms, like enzymes, or even biological processes to achieve its end goal. The way we use biotech is incredibly varied, and it might have a major part to play in creating a better future for us all. Farming is perhaps the original biotech and has had a major impact on the planet. Not only is it a major source of greenhouse gas emissions, it's also one of the sectors most affected by them. Phyteco's biostimulants help plants cope with the stresses associated with climate change by encouraging them to be more tolerant and adaptable.
In our case, we really focus on drought and heat waves, which are often combined. We really work with a single active ingredient, a single molecule, which is active in any part of the crop. So you can apply it on the canopy, on the seed, or even on the root system in the soil. So you can actually trigger the natural mechanism that all plants have and, let's say, enable the full genetic potential of the crop. So it's actually helping the crop to really induce its natural mechanism of defense.
Illinois-based LanzaTech have been exploring the role biotech can play in dealing with waste emissions. Their work has led to an ingenious solution, not only engineering microbes that capture carbon from industrial waste gases, but also converting it into products like jet fuel, fabrics, and packaging.
I imagine a future where a waste gas at a steel mill can be the dash in a car. A future where a steel mill gas can be a pair of running shorts. These are the things we're imagining. But more importantly, these are the things we're making possible. We're already doing it.
Meanwhile, elsewhere in Illinois, Mycocycle are using biotech to explore the miraculous properties of mycelium, the underground root network of fungi.
Fungi are fantastic. They are the ultimate alchemist of this planet. Mycelium are great at decomposing constituents out in nature that are very hard to break down. And we can translate those properties into decomposing construction waste. We teach the mycelium to eat trash by exposing little bits at a time until the mycelium has developed an affinity for these materials.
This biotech doesn't just break down waste, it converts it into new fungi-based biomaterial with a range of uses, including insulation and packaging.
There is no waste in nature. There's always someone else, something else that takes advantage of the byproducts of any process.
There's interest in actually taking mycelium beyond manufactured materials. So it's this network of living material that actually could provide a solution for batteries, for moving electronics around, for acting as a sensor within responsive systems. So the potential of mycelium is huge.
So mushrooms into materials, and maybe more. But could biotech be used to create durable, low-carbon alternatives to high-impact construction materials like concrete? In other words,
can we grow a building? My vision for biotechnology in the built environment is the idea where all the components of a building could be grown rather than relying on the extractive processes that we look to at the moment.
In North Carolina, biomason are imitating coral formations to produce biocement without the extreme heat or emissions associated with traditional concrete production.
We are able to harness the power of bacteria that's been doing its thing for thousands of years underneath the sea in caves to generate biocement. So the starting point for our biocement is our bacteria. We grow it in our lab and stabilize it. We then add it to our aggregate. We feed it with our calcium and the nutrients to help the bacteria live. And 72 hours later, we have a solid unit. And I think that that's where we can make the biggest difference, is to use something natural and put it into our built world.
So biomason is rethinking our built world. But how does biotech apply to the resources that sustain it? Swedish firm Retain is developing transformational biotech that could help clean polluted water, while simultaneously recovering valuable resources such as lithium, a vital component of modern technology whose limited supplies have traditionally been extracted through destructive methods.
Water purification to date uses quite a lot of energy, and it's not highly precise in the way that nature is. Nature has this ability to combine energy efficiency with high precision in recovering resources from water mixtures. We're looking to bring nature's finest separation technology, which is happening in the cell membrane of every living cell, into filtration.
Retain has found a way to use a protein called aquaporin in a membrane that filters out impurities and retains materials that would otherwise go to waste. Aquaporins are normally incredibly fragile, but Retain has found a way to stabilize them with a silica-based shell that improves their durability. So biotech can scale nature's recycling systems for industrial use, grow bricks with bacteria, and engineer protein to prevent pollution. And that's just the start. It's also producing plastic-eating microbes, light-powered carbon-negative chemistry from companies like Neuridium, lab-grown meat and bioactive pouches that extend the lifespan of fresh fruit and vegetables at Green Pod Labs. Biotech could help solve some of the biggest problems we face, but it also raises questions. Engineered microbes don't always behave as expected. Ecosystems are complex, and solving environmental problems with new technologies can sometimes create new risks. But despite these challenges, biotech could still be one of the most powerful tools we have.
It's really about us learning and collecting and understanding and utilizing those lessons and learnings into biotechnology.
What we're really interested in doing is connecting industries. So not to think about this kind of silo of a construction industry and a biotech industry, but actually how can these big key industries work together?
Together, we're learning how to work with biology rather than against it, to respect nature rather than abuse it. It might not be the whole solution, but with research and time, biotech could become a key part of the answer to the world's greatest problems. The science of using life itself as a tool, programming cells, harnessing microbes, and designing new materials to meet human and planetary needs. It's powerful, it's complex, and it's evolving all the time. That's biotechnology.
Fungi are fascinating. They're weird and funky. They are the ultimate alchemist of this planet, and they're able to do so many great things for us. We can learn from nature to solve some of the world's biggest problems. There is no waste in nature. There's always something else that takes advantage of the byproducts.
We're trying to emulate that here at Mycocycle with mushrooms at our core. They're cleaners and they're builders.
We're able to unlock the power of fungi.
So Mycocycle is a process that trains and develops fungi to be able to treat industrial waste streams, particularly construction waste. We're able to not only detoxify waste, but to transform it into new materials in 2 weeks or less and in just 3 steps. My name is Joanne Rodriguez, and I am the founder and CEO of Mycocycle. The waste generated in the construction industry takes up space in landfills, and it can leach toxins into the air, water, and soil. 40% of all greenhouse gas emissions are generated from global construction activities.
The current methods to handle construction waste are not sufficient. We have a huge amount of this waste left over that is not being converted or not being reused. Through the use of our technology, we will speed up the conversion of these waste streams into reusable materials. My name is Daniel Reyes. I'm the technical co-founder of Mycocycle and the vice president of research and innovation. Microremediation is the use of fungi to neutralize and even degrade toxic constituents in nature. So every day we're on the hunt, going out into nature, looking at places like landfills, oil spills, urban centers, and finding fungi that have developed tolerance or an ability to break down and survive those conditions. So for the most part, we observe fungi through their reproductive organs, right? The mushrooms, the fruit bodies. Mycelium is underground, they're unseen. So mycelium is different from that fruit body in that the mycelium is actually the vegetative part of the fungus. It's made up of hyphae that are interwoven within one another, expanding their overall structure. In nature, mycelium are great at decomposing organic matter that are very hard to break down. And we can translate those properties into decomposing construction waste. Slowly, carefully, we teach the mycelium to eat trash by exposing little bits at a time until the mycelium has developed an affinity for these materials. So we mix our base substrate with our construction waste. The mycelium first attacks our base substrate. It kind of gives it a little bit of an energy boost. It starts to secrete this cocktail of enzymes and other metabolites. At the same time, the mycelium will make a jump from that base substrate to the construction waste, and slowly they start to break down this construction waste.
It goes into incubation for a period of 2 weeks. And then we harvest it, we stop the growth and process it to become a fiber or a fill to meet the needs of manufacturers in the raw material market. The mycelium itself has a physical property that lends itself to fire resistance, water resistance, lightweighting, and thermal insulation. It's very, very strong and can penetrate even some of the smallest structures, like in textiles. Our Mycofill G is a composite raw material from gypsum board and mycelium. It's a redless chemical-free material, and we can make mycofiber, which is a shredded version, and we can make what's called a mycofoam. Mycofiber and mycofill can go into everything that you see around you, including concrete, walls, floors, ceilings, furniture. For every ton of waste that we treat, we're able to reduce CO2 emissions by almost 3 metric tons.
The potential of waste, I think, is actually a very funny phrase. Waste is defined as pretty much it has no use, but we see it as a valuable feedstock. So in order to harness the value of waste, it's going to take reframing that term waste and the way we think about end of life. All of these materials that are going to landfill today, whether that's cellulose fibers or fiberglass or even rubber, have really interesting innate mechanical properties and physical attributes that should be given a second opportunity and a third opportunity and a fourth opportunity that can be used towards creating the materials of the future. Mycocycle is bringing that technology to unlock this.
We're looking at scale solutions in a couple of different ways. One is through our mobile bioprocessing unit that allows us to decentralize waste management. We can roll up on site, plug it in, and be ready to go. And then big picture, we're going to have large-scale facilities that could process materials into new raw bio-based applications. Globally, Mycocycle hopes to treat 1.5 million tons of waste a year within the next 5 years. It sounds kind of crazy, but when we think about all the waste that exists out in the world and all of the opportunities to create value in the new markets, we know that it's absolutely plausible. So we'll be able to take the waste at some point in time without getting paid for it. We will need the waste to create our raw materials, and we can responsibly get into these markets that present revenue opportunities and closed-loop ecosystems.
The future of construction is entirely circular. The way that we are using resources right now is a very limited version of what is possible.
The opportunities and applications of mycelium are incredibly far-reaching. I think we are really just scratching the surface.
So we have the opportunity to help nature be a value player to our economy. The world I imagine with more mycelium solutions is just cleaner and more efficient. In fact, I think mycelium is at the core of the circular bioeconomy and fights climate change with nature.
By 2050, there'll be 3 billion new people on this planet. In order to house them, we're going to be building the equivalent of a city for 1 million people every 5 days.
Already, Portland cement production is responsible for 8% of all CO2 emissions. We need to shift away from the way that things have been done in the construction industry for the past 200 years. If you look hard into nature, you can see many challenges have been solved. It's really about us utilizing those lessons and learnings into biotechnology for the construction industry and how we make the materials of our future. We're in a biotech revolution.
Concrete is the single most consumed substance on Earth following water. As population grows, we need more places to live. We need dams and highways and bridges. The downside of concrete is that it has a fundamental chemical reaction that requires the release of CO2 in the environment. So the building block of Portland cement is limestone, is calcium carbonate. We dig that out of the Earth's crust, we burn it at 1450 degrees Celsius, we release the carbon dioxide, and we're left with calcium oxide, the active material that enables concrete to exist. How do you create a carbon neutral version of cement? To solve that problem, we have to go back to the fundamental chemistry.
So the idea to grow cement came from reading about how nature is able to grow this strong and durable cement all around us, including marine environments. I asked the question, well, what if you could grow it?
There's an estimated 1 trillion species of bacteria on planet Earth. They are capable of producing materials that have different structures, different kinds of performance features. They take that same limestone, that same fundamental material we use to produce Portland cement, but they decompose it and reform it into new forms of limestone that are cementitious, that are like concrete, that create shells and coral reefs and strong biological structures.
So Biomason is a technology company. We use microorganisms that are responsible for creating calcium carbonate cements and aggregates. We're actually using the blueprints from nature to make an alternative to Portland cement.
So Biomason is the only company in the world currently producing commercial products in the form of concrete using bacteria to grow the cement. So we're unique in the sense that we are using biology itself and the way that the planet makes concrete and has long before humankind.
So the starting point for our biocement is our bacteria. It's the same thing as making beer, but we're making cement. We grow it in our lab and stabilize it. We then add it to our aggregate, which we take as a waste product from mining facilities. We then put it together and mix it up, get our bacteria alive and happy, and then use our press here to stamp out product. We then put it into our hydroponic system where we seed it with our calcium and the nutrients to help the bacteria live. It takes about 50 to 72 hours to process from a sandcastle into a hardened brick at ambient temperatures. And so as soon as our units are dry, that bacteria is no longer active. The process of making biocement has a significantly reduced CO2 output because we are able to harness the power of bacteria, generating a lot less CO2 through that process. Currently, we are producing a thin tile that could be used for indoor or outdoor application, but we're excited about future versions of our technology. 80 to 85% of the market is dominated by the ready-mix industry. In order to get to our goal of reducing CO2 emissions by 25%, we need to get into ready-mix.
What excites me about the future of the construction industry is imagining what our world's going to look like in 100 years from now. We knew from the beginning that to make the biggest impact that we could not just be one plant, that we had to be able to go into existing manufacturing, be easy to use, and utilize the same equipment that's used in standard production of concrete materials. So we're starting with tiles, but that's just the beginning. Being able to grow your concrete, being able to leverage this wonderful biological perspective will start to become normalized. We're at an inflection point for our planet.
The potential for creating different construction materials using biological systems is potentially endless. I believe the applications for biotechnology are correlative to the biodiversity of the world around us. Humans have looked at about 1/1000% of bacteria, and we're only really starting to learn how to harness that for engineered applications in our world.
The organisms that we are surrounded by are trying to do exactly what we're trying to do. They're trying to build their homes, trying to make materials. And when you realize that, the false separation between us and the rest of the natural world starts to dissolve away.
Plants are vital to human survival. They provide the air we breathe, shelter, they provide our clothing, they provide our medicines. None of us would be here without them. But they're very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. So global food security is a huge issue at the moment. We really need to find smarter ways of providing food for the future.
What we see now is a lot of new techniques. So the role of biotechnology is going to be key to enabling green transition in agriculture, as well as to mitigate the climate crisis. Plants are like humans. They stress. Any kind of stress can have an impact onto the plant's development or growth.
Abiotic stresses such as drought, erratic rain, or heat waves are leading to productivity loss for many farmers all around the globe. By the end of the century, 25% of the global harvest will be at risk. The yields are already under pressure, and with the global population only increasing, we clearly need to see more resilient crops if we want to find a solution. farmers are having to adapt their practices. So we've set up Phyteco in order to help reduce the chemical inputs in agriculture.
So my name is Guillaume Wegria. I'm a CEO and co-founder of Phyteco. Phyteco is a biotech startup which is developing new bio-based active ingredient. There are different ways that we can make crop more resilient. Either you need to modify all the genes, or you boost the natural mechanism that all plants have and enable the full genetic potential of the crop. And so our technology is really inspired by nature. What we're doing is just mimicking the same response that the crop would have if there's a drought. Our biotechnology really works with a single active ingredient, a single molecule, which is present and produced by the crop in a very tiny quantity, but only when they're facing the drought conditions. So we produce them using green chemistry, but at a bigger scale.
Nurseed and Nurspray are our two biostimulant formulations. Nurseed is applied as a seed treatment and Nurspray as a foliar spray on plants. So from early stages of germination and growth, seedlings will be receiving signals which allow the natural defense of the plant against abiotic stresses. We try to simulate some climatic stresses in the lab so that we can study how the plant reacts when it's treated or not with our product. But also in real production on different crops under different climatic conditions. The objective is to reduce the amount of conventional products applied in fields, so that's why we worked with bio-based technology that are safe for the environment.
The key advantage of this technology compared to standard agrochemicals is that it's a naturally occurring molecule which is present in the crop that you eat normally. They're not pesticides because they're not addressing any kind of pathogen, and they're not a fertilizer because they're not a nutrient. So you can apply it on the canopy, on the seed, or even on the root system in the soil. So our biotechnology solutions are really helping to reduce yield loss in case of droughts and helping global food security. Water is really scarce in some regions, like in Africa. And sometimes they don't have access to irrigation.
We told Phyteco that we wanted a seed treatment to protect seedlings from water stress, or specifically for vegetable seeds adapted to tropical areas. I am Clémence Duval, Head of Seed Technology for Technisem. Technisem is a seed company specialized in vegetable seeds adapted to tropical areas. The areas where Technisem distributed seeds are the most affected by climate change. We have to provide the most adapted varieties to adapt to the extreme conditions and to ensure food security. The early stages of development are very important to the development of the crops. We applied Nurseed Max on several plant species, the most sensitive to water stress, to optimize the genetic potential of our seeds. With Phyteco's technology, we show that it is possible to find natural solutions for agriculture. There is an appetite of innovation from the young African farmers. It provides a solution for all vegetable species, therefore it contributes to safer agriculture and food security in Africa.
Biotechnology has the potential to really increase global food production. Water is getting scarce. We need to really find the best way to use the resource that we have currently on Earth. It's not only climate change, it's also the use of our resource today. So new biotechnologies such as our single molecule can help to mitigate the risk of climate change in agriculture.
I think an increasing recognition from everybody about the role of plants within their lives is vital. We have the answers to the next agricultural revolution, whether that's for food security or adapting agriculture to climate change. There's just so much potential out there and we have to move as quickly as we can.
Clean water is fundamental to life as we know it on Earth.
But in our water streams today, we have so many resources that are locked up and turned into waste.
Resources such as lithium, copper, boron, they are finite, and we need to constantly mine them to match the global demand. So it would be amazing if we can close this circle and recover resources from the waste streams. Nature have millions of years to evolve and to create simple yet elegant solutions to the challenging problems.
Our technology will be a game changer for making these kinds of nature-based, highly selective filters viable. Clean water is used in so many contexts.
Almost all industrial processes use water, whether it's within medicine, food and beverage, agriculture.
The more pollution that the water contains, typically the more energy is needed in order to remove these pollutants. This purification then becomes more carbon intensive.
Retain is developing a biomimetic filtration technology, meaning that we can achieve purified water at a high selectivity and increase the efficiency of that process.
Our solution is much more energy efficient compared to what's out there today, because we are taking inspiration from nature in how it's separating the water and other resources.
Mimicking the biological nature of organisms, of living beings, we are able to produce clean water. The technology starts from aquaporins. They are proteins that only allow clean water to pass through them. They don't require any energy, and they are found in all living organisms, in our bodies as well, in our cells, to transport water into the cell and outside of the cells.
The drawback of using proteins such as aquaporins is that they are fragile.
If we take them out of the natural environment, they denature, they die off. So the most challenging difficulty is to stabilize these aquaporins.
When we looked into nature, we came up with the idea to wrap the aquaporin proteins in sort of a body armor or a shell.
This silica protective shell, the special thing about silica is that it is porous, so it allows water and other elements to pass through it while also protecting everything that's inside. For a conventional filter without aquaporins, we need more energy to supply the amount of clean water that we need to produce. But with aquaporins, this amount of energy that we need is dramatically reduced. So what the aquaporins do in our membrane, they allow only clean water to pass through. So this beaker will be collecting only pure water.
This combination of energy efficiency and precision is unique to nature and in great demand in industries.
It's no secret that our resources are finite and needs to be handled carefully and sustainably.
The perfect business would be the one that recirculates all of the leftovers, minimize the waste and the impact they have on the planet.
We see this in nature. Nature does this up to 200 times more efficient than what we can do in industry today.
That's why we're looking into nature to find protein channels that are specific to different kinds of resources, such as lithium, that are key to battery production and, of course, in lithium-ion battery recycling.
So depending on the type of proteins that we use, for example, in the case of aquaporin, they transport water. But if we change this into a different kind of protein, we can program our membrane to filter off different resources that we target.
Our technology can be integrated and retrofitted into existing systems.
Demand is visible within a wide range of different industries. It can be either very small scale solutions like wearables. It can also be industrial scale, full scale applications, from semiconductor manufacturing to food production to health tech.
With our technology, we can improve our ecosystems, lower the amount of emissions, and in the process, purifying water. And in the end, it's a win-win.
There's lots of new innovations coming through in the materials industries, whether that be buildings or clothing or textiles. The aim is to create a future where there's no waste. And I think there really is a sense of urgency to try and find sustainable methods. The input into the system would come from biological materials that are grown, materials like mycelium. It's a very compelling biomaterial. It can be produced in different ways that it can be adaptable to different applications. Mycelium really is a bit of a wonder material. My name's Jane Scott and I am a researcher in the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment. Mycelium is really transforming the world of materials. Not only can we grow this material and transform it through quite simple manufacturing processes that don't require extensive heat or power or energy, but also I think thinking through that material life cycle, either a mycelium product can be biodegradable because all the components are natural. It's got great insulation properties. It's a very clean material. It's non-toxic. It's naturally fire retardant. So really all these properties together mean that it is perfect for applications in the built environment and a number of manufactured goods. Mycelium combined into composites can take the benefit of the other materials. So for example, in combination with waste cellulose material can offer a really robust alternative to using plastic for packaging, and it produces a packaging material that's biodegradable. Pure mycelium actually is a really compelling alternative to leather. It can be produced in such a lot of different ways that it can be adaptable to different applications. There's interest in actually taking mycelium beyond manufactured materials. It has an amazing ability to clean up waste environments, so even kind of chemicals or hydrocarbons from oil. So it's really a very versatile new biotechnology that's coming through. I think one of the problems with materials is that we tend to use them in a linear system. So we extract the materials, we process them, we use them, and then we dispose of them. And I think more and more we're beginning to understand that we need to work towards circular systems so we don't waste materials. We have the ability to grow the bespoke products that we need. So rather than everything being kind of a mass-produced material, the future with mycelium is to design the appropriate solutions that we would want. So it might be in a building that rather than it being kind of standardized material, we can think very closely about what this particular building needs and design a bespoke mycelium textile composite to work with that. I mean, it really excites me to think that we could move towards a future where all the components of a building could be grown. I think industries are very committed to circularity. I think materials are key to creating a circular bioeconomy because they are the constituent component of the products, buildings, the fabrics that we wear. I'm excited about the future, but it's not just about the people making the materials, it's about all of us and how we use materials. And I think actually we as consumers are now engaged and really passionate about the materials that we use in our everyday lives. I think the future for mycelium-based materials is really exciting.
Flight 307 from Midland is now unloading. Passengers may claim their baggage.
Aviation has opened up the world for people, allowing them to travel, to experience new places. It's connecting goods around the world. It's hugely beneficial for global trade.
aviation overall will grow between now and 2050. Suddenly, we're at a cliff edge.
It has massive impacts on the environment.
We think the total climate impact is around 6% of global carbon emissions.
Time is of the essence because we've got to do a whole sector transition, introducing new policy, new technology, new types of fuel, and it's all got to happen incredibly quickly. We have never had to do this before.
The size of the challenge is huge. There's no one silver bullet that's going to solve this problem.
And so we've developed a tool that investigates solutions and ultimately work to accelerate our mission to net zero. The Aviation Impact Accelerator is an initiative based out of the University of Cambridge, where we accelerate the pathways to sustainable aviation. We develop models, tools, and insights that can inform decision makers. We needed to be able to create the model to get to these net zero pathways.
So the tool is designed to be able to imagine new futures.
This whole system model takes an incredibly complex systems problem with many different dimensions that it's almost impossible for the human brain to understand, and it simplifies it, which allows decision makers to navigate through and see the crux of the problem and ultimately the decisions they need to make.
One single technology can totally change the route through the problem. We developed 4 areas for raising ambition. We know that at least half the climate impact of aviation is the clouds that form, caused by contrails. But the uncertainty of the size of this effect is very large. We understand these clouds act to both trap in heat and reflect radiation, but overall are bad. By changing fuels from traditional fuels to sustainable aviation fuels, you could affect the formation of contrails. But it's likely that contrail avoidance will play a bigger part than the change to new fuels.
The model is pointing to us that we could make a difference to contrails quickly if we modify how and where they form, for example, changing altitude.
But achieving this sort of change at pace is a real systems problem. You have to get the people who are developing the satellites, you have to get the pilots, the flight planners, the communications with the aircraft. All of these things have to work together in the right way. But the second option is to make a replacement jet fuel that was climate neutral, what we call sustainable aviation fuel. You don't have to change the planes. You don't have to change the infrastructure. Normal jet fuel is taken out of the ground where it's been stored for millions of years, and then we burn it and we increase the CO2 in the atmosphere. A sustainable aviation fuel is produced from some sort of carbon source from the environment to make the fuel, so there's a net zero or a net reduction in the cycle. Broadly speaking, there are 3 types of sustainable aviation fuel. First of all, used vegetable oil can at maximum produce about 1% of world's aviation fuel currently. So that's incredibly limited. So the second broad class are biofuels. You use the waste to produce the biofuel. That could be wood residue, or it could be from corn. We've run a global biomass model for the UK government, and we estimate that using all the waste residue from all different sources would be just about enough to produce all of today's aviation fuel. But it's nowhere near big enough for 2050. And that will make about 3 times the fuel. That would make all of our fuel requirements for 2050. The challenge is that the cost is likely to be between 3 and 8 times jet fuel today, because the energy required to make those fuels is incredibly high.
Hydrogen is one of the key areas that we look at here at the Aviation Impact Accelerator.
So a part of the pathway through aviation is to produce a new type of aircraft that run on hydrogen. And that has a real advantage because you remove carbon completely from the process. The energy use is around a third lower than replacing jet fuel.
Hydrogen is a very different fuel to that of kerosene. In particular, it takes up a lot more space. The shape of the aircraft that's burning hydrogen would look very different from that of today to maintain the functions in terms of carrying people and goods, but also being able to carry fuel, because there are really big opportunities to fly on hydrogen.
The limited solution would be to go for a battery electric type aircraft. And that reduces energy usage again by another third. But the problem is the weight of batteries is very high. Really, unless somebody gets a Nobel Prize in battery technology, battery-propelled aircraft will really only go 500 kilometers by 2050. We're looking at new designs of electric propulsion system that integrate into the body of the aircraft. So the integration between the model and the deep technology teams within the Whittle and its wider family is critical to accelerating the development of those technologies. And then the final solution was a new business model for aviation. So aviation has been reducing its fuel burn at 1.5% a year. But what sort of business model could we change to which would drive that down even faster?
So over the last few years, we've spent a lot of time developing our industry relationships. Aviation is a global sector with many different countries, airports, businesses. We are working with the people in Rolls-Royce, in Boeing, in Airbus, in EasyJet, in British Airways, at Heathrow. We don't want to draw system boundaries around aviation. The scope of the tool goes beyond aviation because it relies on adjacent sectors, whether that be energy production, fuel production, even agricultural production. More recently, we've been really focused on engaging with policymakers. It really requires very substantial government leadership that can put in place the kind of strategy and requirements that industry are going to have to make in order to move together at the same time to net zero.
I think cross-industry collaboration is essential. As we look to solving the wider problem of decarbonisation in aviation, we can do our bit to improve engine technologies, for example, but you've got to start looking beyond that into the fuel system providers and then ultimately into green energy as well. So you can't just solve it within your own area, you've got to look at whole energy policy. And that ultimately also gets into financial policy, so you've got to get beyond your sector to solve it from a holistic point of view.
Aviation over the last 50 years has gone from a very small number of people travelling. In 2018, 11% of the world flew. The price of air travel has dropped, and because of the rise in middle class in Asia, Africa and South America, who are about to take their first flight, that means that aviation overall will grow between now and 2050.
We can create a sector for the future that works for people and provides those opportunities while not damaging our planet.
I always liked the act of discovery. I was always interested in the great explorers. And over time I came to love the sea. Between 80 and 90% of global trade is transported by ships. So without ships, no trade. Shipping emits about 1 billion metric tons of carbon every year. Quite frankly now, I also see a big commercial opportunity for technology companies to make that to make the marine industry more sustainable. Those that adopt digital transformation will outperform everyone else. My dream is that one day, when a large ship enters a big industrial port, the water in that port is so crystal clear and so full of fish that it is just wonderful. That's what we need to achieve. Shipping, historically, it is one of the the less sustainable industries. That is because, one, the type of fuel they use is very heavy fuel, and secondly, because most ships, when they're at sea, are a black box. So you don't really know what happens mechanically, operationally in the ship until it comes back to port. Aveva is an industrial software company. That means we provide software that designs, builds, and operates industrial assets. You can today design a ship fully in the cloud, including very complex ships with more than 3 million data points. You can then take that digital twin of a ship and use it to mirror the operations of the ship. Companies collect data from these ships and then run predictive analytics that allows them to optimize the fuel consumption of their ships and save about a third, about 30%.
Here we've got a model of a vessel. It's a really cool thing to be able to give this data to someone that needs it. In the past, good luck. That information was stored on a couple of thousand pages of paper that was delivered with the vessel and no one ever looked at. If we're able to take all of the data that's out there in the port and in the wider shipping environment, apply a bit of context, apply a bit of analytics to it, we can take all of those ones and zeros and turn it into information that's ready to make decisions on. It allows us to really speed things up.
It's important to look at the entire industry, looking at the ship operators, the ship builders, the fuel suppliers, the port operators, and bring all of them in. That allows you to be much, much more efficient and take out unnecessary waiting time, unnecessary fuel spend, all sorts of unnecessary waste out of the shipping supply chain. And you can do that not just for one ship, you can do that for entire fleets.
This is a live map of the port. Now, in this instance, what we're really trying to focus on is the fuel supply chain. So you can see I've got 2 red dots out there at the moment, and those are 2 ships that are waiting to come into port. If we have a look at this environment, there's a problem where I'm currently running very low on hydrogen. So if I drag out in this environment a little bit, and I can see over here I've got another ship that's waiting a little bit further out, it was off screen. This is a ship that we know from our manifest that is carrying hydrogen. What we're going to do is take the ship that's further out, let it frog leap the others, it can come into port, unload its hydrogen supply. That does 2 things. The owner of this ship is happy. They're running more efficiently. But the 2 ships that burn hydrogen as a fuel source that we're waiting, they can come into port, refuel as they normally would. We've stopped 3 ships sitting out at sea burning fuel just to keep life support systems going. What we want to do is reduce the total tons of carbon CO2 emissions to 0. The goals that the marine industry has today are fairly aggressive, and unfortunately we don't have the luxury of waiting for new infrastructure to be put in. What we need to do is start doing as much as we can with the infrastructure and the technology that exists today, and that's where Aveva can help.
Sustainability and efficiency are generally supply chain challenges. So they are ecosystem challenges. And this is where the concept of radical collaboration, the ability to break through data silos and ultimately access the data from the different parts of the supply chain is so important, because that gives you the visibility that allows you to be much, much more efficient. So everything I have described in terms of the design process, in terms of what is possible from an operation point of view, exists today. My call to action to the shipping industry is be curious, see what exists elsewhere, adopt it to your needs and use it to outperform your competitors and do good for the planet.
Aviation is the most challenging of all of the transport methods that we use. It's hard to beat aviation fuel, which is a low-density material.
If we really want to keep flying, we need to do it with a low-carbon approach, and sustainable aviation fuel is the way to do it.
Sustainable aviation fuel must mean that it's a fuel that drives a plane without the production of carbon. I am Professor Sir David King, formerly Chief Scientific Advisor to the British government. If we try to see what are the alternatives, one is to produce aviation fuels using non-fossil fuel sources. The way you're going to do that is to create alternative sources of carbon, because aviation fuel is necessarily carbon-based.
I'm Jennifer Holmgren and I'm the CEO of LanzaTech. LanzaTech has developed a biological process that uses what you would know as traditional fermentation to make all types of products, except that instead of starting with sugar like you do when you make beer or wine, we actually start with waste gases.
My name's Sean Simpson. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer and the founder of LanzaTech. We were able, in the first instance, to make high volumes of ethanol from resources like steel mill waste gases or gases produced from municipal solid waste. That ethanol that we can make from these different waste resources can itself be turned into aviation fuel. In each one of these is a small reactor in which we're feeding gas, and there's microbes in there that eat the gas and turn that gas into ethanol. So really this is like a microbrewery. So in this reactor, microbes are constantly being fed gases, they're constantly consuming that gas and converting it into a sustainable molecule like ethanol. We can, in a small way, convert our sustainable gases into products continuously, and those products of course can be used for making jet fuel, making replacements for gasoline, or making materials that we use in everyday life. We developed the technology based on our understanding of the ability of certain kinds of bacteria to consume gases, particularly carbon dioxide, the classic greenhouse gas, carbon monoxide that turns into carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and hydrogen. There are microbes that pre-existed most forms of life on Earth that can use these gases to produce valuable molecules. And so we wanted to leverage this ability, this natural process, to allow the production of sustainable materials.
It's making the aviation sector rethink how much feed, how much raw material is available for making sustainable aviation fuel. Some of the feedstocks that have been used have been biological feedstocks that might compete with food if you use too much of it.
The way to produce aviation fuel immediately that's available now is using sugar from sugarcane. But in any case, you are then cutting across food supplies. So there's another problem. We've got a heavily growing global population, now approaching 8 billion.
And so what we're doing is we're saying, look, all of these waste resources that don't compete with food, don't compete for land, don't use water, can be converted to jet fuel.
Sustainable aviation fuel has already been shown to be better. It's better because it has a much lower greenhouse gas footprint. It's better because it has a much lower sulfur emission. It's better because it has a slightly higher energy density, so you don't need so much fuel to travel the same distance.
I think one of the major challenges for the industry is how do you decarbonize while still growing, while still enabling people to take a break?
I think there's no question that aviation in the future is going to look very, very different from where it is now. The question of incentivizing financing for all of this is very heavily dependent on two things. Regulatory process needs to come in to give aircraft a certain amount of carbon dioxide they can emit for a certain journey carrying a certain number of people. You've got to have common standards, but it does require international agreement. You introduce regulations and these are progressive so that you keep driving to the next stage, so that we're always pushing the airlines until they are fully sustainable and fit for purpose.
I not only see a future where captured CO2 delivers 100% of sustainable aviation fuel, I see that that future is essential. We have to be on the cusp of a new industrial era. We've commercialised something that no one thought was possible, using bacteria that no one thought could be tamed, at a scale that no one believed that we would achieve. So, am I hopeful? Absolutely.
Shipping has a major impact on the marine environment. The only energy source we're being offered is one which is going to destroy the very future of organic life which we seek to enhance. We should be transitioning straight into green fuels.
The Green Pioneer now is the world's first dual-fuel ammonia ship. The benefits are widely known, and that is that it is a carbon-free fuel, and that it is produced principally from what we're breathing in with nitrogen and hydrogen.
This magnificent ship is the future of shipping. I'm Andrew Forrest. I'm the founder and executive chairman of Fortescue. I was originally a farmer and then eventually started my own company. I'm deploying that success into the most exciting industry there ever has been, and that's the transition to green energy everywhere. It doesn't take binoculars to look far to see our mission is far from complete. I really started considering the environmental impact of the company with my board of directors before 2013. It didn't really start with great conviction until I had a hiking accident and decided to put myself back to university, doing a PhD on the marine environment where the shocking ravages of climate change are being felt. And I came out of that convinced that there is an absolute urgent need to change. Ocean health is important because every second breath you have taken, it comes out of the ocean. We absolutely must protect it.
When we look at the contribution of shipping, you might say, well, it's only 3% of total emissions, it's not so high, but that level is going to rise with population growth and trade growth between 9 and 10% in the next decade or so. The Green Pioneer was a project really that was 2 years in the running till completion. We bought the vessel in 2022. Principal purpose then was to try to use a vessel to go and show to various ports that we can bring ammonia-fueled vessel into your port. We did some land-based tests in Perth. We ran ammonia engines there. That was very, very successful. Over a period of about 6 months in the conversion, we completed the project. The Green Pioneer now is the world's first dual-fuel ammonia ship. And this is basically a demonstrator vessel that has proven that it is possible today to use ammonia as a fuel. The benefits are widely known, and that is that it is a carbon-free fuel, and that is produced principally from what we're breathing in with nitrogen and hydrogen, which we produce through electrolysis. So it has very, very strong green credentials compared to continuing to burn fossil fuel. You significantly reduce your carbon intensity. It is the fuel that will be replacing the fossil fuel in shipping.
We got here right here, brother, and we all made lots of friends. It's amazing, babe. So we came in here, see these docks here? We did the handbrake turn in the middle here. It's amazing.
So good, huh? Without any doubt, we can produce shipping fuel all over the world. That's, I think, incredibly important because we can mass produce it purely from the sun and the wind you're feeling right now rolling across your skin. That's wasted energy. We can convert that to shipping fuel. I think the biggest challenge we have is short-termism and deeply vested interests with solid knowledge gaps in their thinking, where senior politicians in countries are being told there is no way to a green future.
Shipping is a highly regulated industry. There's no rule book for the use of ammonia in a ship. When you go to a regulator, go to a flag state in Singapore and say, we're going to be burning ammonia in your backyard, Usually the first answer is, no you're not, hell will freeze over before that's going to happen. But I think what we really managed to do is we managed to show that we actually knew our stuff as a mining group, or anyway dealing with very complex chemicals and so forth. So our process safety systems are second to none. And then from one moment being quite negative, then they said, actually no, we would love you to come to Singapore. You're part of our energy fuel mix that we want to serve in Singapore. We delivered a project without a rule book. I think what was then the achievement of the project is we then helped write that rule book, so that enabled us to sail to COP28. And I think to date now, I think we've had more than 2,000 people to visit the ship, from heads of states to leading marine biologists, of course the leading CEOs as well. So this is really what the Green Pioneer is all about. We're wanting to trigger a demand for the ammonia to show that it's capable to build that market. We're wanting to show that the technology is available, and we're also show that it's actually feasible and permissible to use ammonia as a fuel. The next stage is to make sure that all the world ports are actually open to the use of ammonia in their port. Ultimately, green shipping has to involve people from both the supply end, the shipping end, the receiving end, the consumer end. We need to connect all those dots. Those people in the supply chain that are making the decision will cause that change to happen.
This presents the greatest single opportunity for investors and our shareholders that the world's seen in at least 100 years. We need vision. We need energy which doesn't destroy the planet. Let's act for our shareholders, let's act for our families, and we do that by going completely green.
The vantage point of space is incredibly important. It's one of those invisible pieces of infrastructure upon which we all depend, and most people don't even realize it. The food we eat was grown using fertilizer that was placed using imaging from space, harvested using tractors guided by satellites, and brought to our tables through ships and aircrafts that are guided by satellite.
Space really plays a very important role in how we look at solving sustainability problems on Earth. When you have years and years of data collection from satellites, you can make better decisions.
I think space has an incredibly powerful role to play. Nano satellites are these satellites, if you imagine them, about the size of a loaf of bread. Rather than having very large, monolithic and exquisite satellites, we launched Spire with the mission of using these new swarms of nanosatellites to really provide new data sets and new opportunities to make smarter decisions.
What Spire really cares about is taking data from space to help solve sustainability problems on Earth. When you have smaller satellites, or you can have more consistent coverage around the world, then you start to have a really interconnected network that can process data rapidly and then can just accelerate the types of use cases and problem solving that you can do. There are a number of ways that space technology can be used to reduce emissions, particularly when you talk about aircraft and when you talk about shipping, which are two industries that are really involved in emissions. And this really comes from collecting data, combining it with other information, and doing analytics. And you can start to look at what routing are they taking and how do they make different decisions there that can both improve their time of arrival, but also improve their emissions and how efficient they are being at fuel consumption. You can't decide how to fix something if you're not measuring it. And so by measuring it, identifying where it's happening more than you expect, you can start to take action about it.
And so data from space and from satellites like Spire is used to help the industry to reduce their own costs and reduce their own emissions. One of the major problems that Spire supports with its satellites and with its services is fighting climate change. As just one example, GHGSat from Canada uses sensors in space to directly detect and monitor methane and CO2 emissions. If I am an operator, for example, of a pipeline, I have a huge set of surface area that I need to monitor and detect very quickly if we have a methane leak. You need to know where emissions are happening. And so GHGSat has the crowning achievement of detecting the largest leak ever, which was the Nord Stream leak in the North Sea. When you want to see the big picture, really the only way to do it cost effectively is from space. One of the tremendous benefits of this innovation in the industry, where satellites are getting smaller, they're getting more affordable, and launch costs are coming down, is we will get better applications and better data, we'll get it into the hands of users faster, and we will get that collaboration between users and analyzers of the data in order to produce better applications and solve these problems.
One of the innovations of Spire Global is an innovative business model we do called Space Services.
Space as a Service, or SPaaS, is for the space industry what cloud computing was for the web industry. Our vision with Space Services is that it should be as easy to deploy an application into space as it is to deploy something to the cloud. So Spire takes our customers from an idea to an operational service in space and data flowing to their customers. So that starts with us working with our customers to understand, okay, what does your end application look like once it's in space? We then will either build a customized solution like a dedicated satellite, or in many cases we will take a device and put it on an existing satellite that's being launched to enable it for their application. Whatever it is, we take them from an idea to an existing set of satellites in space that are gathering that type of data. And they don't need to be thinking about launches. We take care of all of that.
So examples of this sort of thing could be a customer that we work with who has a particular payload to monitor wildfires, where instead of having to build all of the satellites themselves, they can then deploy that payload on top of our infrastructure. This way, they can deploy applications to space more cost-effectively and more rapidly. Our ambition for 2030 is to really make sure that governments, that corporations, and that the average citizen really understands how important space is in what they do day to day.
There is incredible power available, incredible tools available. It's never been easier to take an idea and make it real in the space industry. We've never been able to do it as fast as we can do today. What we need more is of that collaboration so that we can move faster than our problems.
And therefore, as we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
I think imagery from space is really important for the storytelling power, and that's really been the case since the 1960s, since the start and the Apollo missions, and seeing the amazing Earthrise image. And these are really just communicating the story of humans exploring space and seeing these different perspectives. So we believe it's really important to have freely accessible live video of everything that's happening on Earth, because it's about engaging the public. You know, the story of Earth and our exploration of space is a story about all of us. I'm Charles Black, and I'm the founder and CEO of SEN. SEN's vision is democratising space, with our video streams being freely accessible both online and on TV. And I think that's really important, that we can empower humanity to witness planetary change. It's all about informing, educating, hopefully inspiring and benefiting people. A lot of the pictures taken and data captured is really important for environmental monitoring, because it might be used by governments and scientists to understand, for example, climate change. But I wanted to give people accessible data. Movies tell stories, they can stir emotions, they can make people think differently. We wanted to bring that and give what's known as the overview effect to everyone. And the overview effect is
the effect looking at Earth from space has on people. Over 600 astronauts have seen Earth from space, and they all describe this perception change that you have. You see this reality that we're on a beautiful planet and a borderless world, and it makes you think differently. We've developed video cameras that can live stream. We've deployed these first of all in our own satellite, which is in low Earth orbit, and that has 2 cameras that can live stream and record 4K video, including having multiple cameras on at the same time. And Space TV 1, hosted on the International Space Station, has 3 different camera views. We have one camera view looking straight down at Earth. It's a really good size for filming natural disasters, environmental events, and seeing really the geography of the world. One camera view looking at Earth's horizon, so we can see storms and just the curvature of the Earth and sunrise and sunset. And one camera view looking at a part of the space station where spacecraft arrive and depart and stay docked. We've designed and developed the electronics and the whole computer system that can remotely and robotically operate live stream, steerable cameras. And the software is a really important aspect to that. And it's constantly being developed, and we develop on the ground and test on the ground, and then we can upload to the hosted camera systems. It's a little bit like operating systems on smartphones where you're getting updates every single year and improvements. The heart of what we're doing is just the actual native storytelling power, showing the beauty of the reality of our existence on a planet and monitoring planetary change and empowering humanity. But there are many use cases for the data. It can be used to monitor natural disasters such as storms or wildfires, and actually delivering that information in real time to government agencies, emergency response. Our cameras can also be used for space situational awareness when we start looking at space activities in low Earth orbit or geostationary orbit. We can be filming space debris. We're really excited to be also looking at developing virtual reality services as well. So imagine being able to have the experience of a fully immersive watching live video, either of Earth, of the Moon, or of space station activities. If you look at maps, they're obviously like static and they're based on people taking pictures and then the people drawing CGI. And I think what we can add is a real-time layer of information onto a static map. Hopefully we're creating something that can give people new views of Earth and like change the way we see Earth forever. Seeing the beauty of our planet in the same way that astronauts do. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and I feel that everyone should have access to be able to see live views of not just the story of Earth, but also our exploration of space. Flying over the same places, it will never look the same ever again. And you're literally filming history in real time as the planet's evolving and changing. This is a story that should be told and that everyone should have access to.
Space-based solar power is the concept of putting large arrays of solar panels up in space and transmitting that electricity wirelessly down to Earth. In space, because you see the sun all the time, you get 24/7 power, and because there's no weather, no seasons, no night, you get 13 times more instant energy. You can instantaneously switch the beam between any point within the field of view, so a third of the Earth's surface from a single satellite. You get this incredible, scalable, continuous energy source. Space-based solar power can be a hugely important part of our future energy mix in helping us move away from fossil fuels. Space is our adjacent economic sphere. It's already had a huge impact on the way we understand and manage our environment and the climate. And I think it opens up just a huge range of fantastic possibilities for the next generation. I'm Sam Adler, I'm co-CEO of Space Solar, where we're developing and commercialising space-based solar power, leveraging the abundant energy in space to provide clean, affordable power to markets on Earth.
This is an incredible artifact of space-based solar power. It's the original journal from astounding science fiction, where Asimov, as a very young man, wrote his short story Reason, which has the first description of space-based solar power beaming to other worlds. He was an unbelievable science fiction writer. A lot of his predictions have come true.
So space-based solar power really first came into people's consciousness through people like Asimov. And then ever since the 60s, NASA and others have studied space-based solar power, and it's always been considered technically viable. It's effectively the concept of putting large arrays of solar panels up in space. That converts the sun's energy into electricity. You transmit that in a low power density beam, so it's designed to be safe, down to a receiving antenna, a rectifying antenna on Earth. It's a bit like a fruit net on poles. Our smallest system is a 30 megawatt system. It's a 400 meter diameter. So that's about 4 times the size of the International Space Station. Then our largest gigawatt scale, 650 megawatt system, is 1.4 kilometers diameter. To put that in context, a couple of gigawatts is a typical power station and provides city scale power. Now, one of the challenges with space solar power is as you go around the orbit, you need to both point at the sun and the Earth all the time, changing the angle. So most designs, or many designs, have a large mechanical rotating joint, which is heavy. Our first demonstrator is called Harrier. It's a half-meter demonstrator of our core technologies.
It is the world's first type of a 3D retrodirective phased array. We do something slightly different at Space Solar. We're using this helix shape, and this helix allows us to electronically steer the beam. So Harrier is this first attempt at showing full 360-degree wireless power transmission using this helix shape. This enables us to both point at the sun, we fix ourselves at the sun, but electronically we can steer the beam in order to keep pointing at the Earth.
The 5 things that space solar can help with on Earth are providing affordable, abundant energy. It can help us create a range of different new large infrastructure to meet a range of different benefits like communications or data centers in space. It can help us optimize our energy systems because of this ability to flexibly switch the beam to anywhere within the field of view, so you can reduce overall energy system costs internationally. It can help in terms of driving future jobs, a bright future for the next generation. And then importantly, it can help us democratize energy access. Often the form of power that's relied upon most are diesel generators. And with smaller modular receiving antennas, there's the opportunity to provide a far more sustainable alternative to these solutions. We've got huge challenges with the intermittency of renewables. Space solar power, it can help some of the intermittent renewables like offshore wind and terrestrial solar by providing that power that balances the production from those systems when the wind's not blowing or the sun's not shining. So with the change in launch costs that we're about to see, space-based solar power is now incredibly economically viable. It's important that we introduce new energy sources because frankly energy demand is just skyrocketing. And what space solar power can do because of its compelling economics is ultimately really reduce the cost of energy to consumers. The scalability of space-based solar power is one of its really key features, and now we're in a position to go on our roadmap, which next sees ground-to-air power beaming in 18 months, an in-space demonstration of kilowatt-scale power in 3 years' time, and a first 30 megawatt system providing commercial power in 5 years' time from a single Starship launch. we can start with a different approach, and actually making sure sustainability is embedded from the start is key. The UK's got some huge potential and leadership in certain areas. And space solar power, with the change in launch costs, with the increasing energy demand, it's now the time for space-based solar power and space to become a huge contributor to meeting our energy needs. We live in times of great change, but also of great opportunity.
The chemical process is a global process. The clothes that we wear, baby bottles, plastics, paint, chemicals touch everything that defines the modern life.
The way that chemicals are produced today result in a very large amount of carbon dioxide as well as other greenhouse gas emissions into the environment.
600 million tons of CO2 is emitted, which is roughly equivalent to total emission by a country like Mexico.
The chemical industry has largely been ignored in this fight against climate change.
It's incredibly important to find more sustainable means of producing chemicals to ensure the longevity of our planet.
If we want to make a true impact, nature provides an inspiration how we should do things from a big picture. What makes all life possible on Earth is photosynthesis. Nature doesn't do reaction at 1,000 degrees Celsius, doesn't emit CO2. Our technology uses light to activate chemical reactions as opposed to high temperature.
Our process at New Iridium uses electrification instead of fossil fuels to create the desired product. Essentially a greener and cheaper way of manufacturing the same end products.
The chemical industry really got going around World War II. Chemicals are involved in about 96% of all manufactured goods. The industry underpins about $2.5 trillion in annual economic activity. Chemicals today are produced using high heat and create lots of waste, including CO2.
There are significant CO2 emissions associated with such an energy-intensive process. By using lights, we make chemical bonds easier to break and form. We are developing photocatalysis to, change how chemicals are made.
Photosynthesis is fundamentally a photocatalytic process. Chlorophyll uses light energy to convert carbon dioxide and water into glucose. Similarly, photocatalysis utilizes light energy to drive a chemical reaction. Chemical bonds are weakened by exciting the electrons with light, which eliminates the need for using high thermal input.
A leaf takes carbon dioxide and water and creates materials with it using the power of light. You're not using brute force anymore to force molecules together. Instead, you're dealing with electrons in their orbitals and having them hop one to another. It's a completely new way of doing chemistry. Compared to today's process, which takes 5 steps, and you use dangerous chemicals and create a lot of waste, we can produce the same compound in 2 steps using CO2.
CO2 is actually incorporated into the chemical structure, and ultimately it becomes integrated into the end products that we use every day. Our technology closes the carbon cycle. In fact, it consumes more CO2 than it produces, so it actually goes one step further, creating carbon-negative processes. Using photocatalysis, display screens for modern electronics sequester CO2 indefinitely.
For every 100 pounds of plexiglass, about 50 pounds of that weight is coming from CO2 using our process. We got to think about how do we reduce waste, how do we reduce emission, how we reuse CO2 into something useful.
Nature provides an inspiration how we use materials.
We're at a point now where we are starting to see some of the unintended consequences of the way we've been living here as a young species. There are these answers that are inherently sustainable and regenerative that are all around us.
Our vision is to actually rewrite the handbook on chemical engineering.
If we want to continue modern lifestyle, I fundamentally believe that photocatalysis can take us there.
On a millennial timescale, we have to get to a circular economy. So we're not depleting resources in order to continue maintaining our lifestyles.
Sustainability is about looking to nature. One thing we know is there's no waste in nature. Everything gets turned into something else.
Everywhere in the world, we eat, we drink. There's a food industry, there's agriculture, there's dairy. No matter where you are, there is a primary biological industry. And primary biological industries generate biological residues.
We cannot continue with the linear use of resources we've followed for the past couple of 100 years.
Our objective at Celtic Renewables is to use low-value wastes and residues from biological industries where we can add value to these and create sustainable chemicals that we need in our everyday lives. I'm Professor Martin Tangney. I'm the founder and president of Celtic Renewables. The ABE fermentation was first developed here in the UK over 100 years ago. It's based on microorganisms that can produce the chemicals acetone, butanol, and ethanol, which give the fermentation its name. At its peak, this was the second biggest biological industry that the world has ever seen, second only to the drinks industry. It died out in the 1960s because it couldn't compete with the petrochemical industry, which to this day remains the source of these chemicals.
My name's Duncan McLachlan and I'm the commercial manager at Celtic Renewables. Acetone and the butanol are used in a multitude of items that touch your life every day. Things like nail varnish and fragrances like perfume, hand gel, which has obviously been used a lot recently, even the glasses that we're used to wearing, the plastic that's involved in the frames and also in the lenses as well. The vitamin tablet that you have in the morning, you require butanol to manufacture that. Even the screens on our mobile devices have acetone or butanol somewhere in the process to manufacture them. Our acetone and butanol can be used to replace the petrochemicals derived material that's used in these everyday products.
For all the time that mankind has been on this planet, it's only been the last 100 years that has seen us totally dependent upon petrochemicals to live our daily lives. Our view is that we can consign that to history by replacing those chemicals with sustainable biological alternatives. The major cause of the demise of the ABE as a global industry was the cost of production. The biological process was now too expensive compared to its new competitor, the petrochemical industry.
Now the drilling can continue to see if it strikes oil.
Largely because of the cost of the raw material that was used to produce these chemicals biologically. This was always high-valued grain, food crops that we would use, and these are expensive. As a scientist working and experienced in the ABE fermentation, what I set out to do was to see, could I provide the organisms with a cheaper, more sustainable material to use in the fermentation? And I looked at where I could get a reliable, consistent supply at large volume of biological matter. And in Scotland, we can get that from the whisky industry. Only 10% of what goes into a distillery ends up as whisky in the whisky industry. The remaining residues are comprised largely of a solid material known as draff, which is the unused barley seeds, and pot ale, which is a liquid that's left behind after distillation.
My name is Dr. Annie Chow, and I'm a research scientist at Celtic Renewables. So we're taking these Scotch whisky sector byproducts and we add it with some sugar such as rejected vegetable, and we add a group of bacteria called Clostridia, which can be found naturally in soil. We ferment it and convert it into solvents such as acetone, butanol, and ethanol. So by using food waste or byproduct from another industry, we are using what's already there not only we solve the disposal problem for another industry, we're also trying to take what's already there and convert it into chemicals that are valuable, offering a more sustainable option and also contribute to circular economy.
The butanol that we produce can also be used as a biofuel in a standard petrol combustion engine. By using butanol, the carbon footprint associated with running that car will be reduced considerably compared to using fossil-derived material as a fuel. There's no need to modify your engine. The butanol can be put in as a direct replacement for petrol, allowing you to run your car in a much more sustainable and environmentally friendly way.
The original engines that were used in automobiles were all intended to run on biofuel. Bioethanol was used in the combustion engine, and peanut oil was the original source used in the diesel engine. So the world has a long established history of biofuel, and we had an opportunity, using butanol, to bring it back in a more sustainable way.
Celtic Renewables plant at Grangemouth uses whisky residues as a feedstock, but we're also looking at using feedstocks from the agricultural sector and the food and drink sector globally.
What's true for whisky in Scotland is true for many other industries all around the world. Had I been somewhere else, I may well have started with a completely different raw material. This has no limits. We can use this technology on the residues of any food or drink or agriculture industry. Our role is to take any biological residue that we can use and convert it into higher value and bring sustainability not just to Scotland but to the world.
At the moment, we have what would be described as a linear economy. Materials are taken from natural or man-made products, and that goes through a supply chain in a linear fashion into products that people use and then throw away.
But over 90% of the materials do not really have a second life cycle. Essentially, most of it is just wasted.
Reusing materials, reusing energy as much as possible helps us to really keep carbon emissions low and also decrease the amount of materials we have to introduce to the market.
We want to make sure that products that we put into the economy can be recycled back over and over again. But recycling is done with almost no information. What's the composition? What's the information about the recycled or renewable content look like? What's the embedded carbon emissions? Just by having a bit more information on what it is that we're trying to recycle, you could already improve recycling in orders of magnitude. Circulus is a company from the Netherlands, and we are changing the way supply chains work. We're bringing digital product passport to the industry. Imagine you have 3 different raw materials that go into a few components that become, let's say, a bottle with a cap. Each raw material will have its own digital passport. The digital passports get sent from the raw material manufacturers to the polymer manufacturers. These guys then take those digital passports, add their own information, and all that information will then be captured in the final bottle. Companies can communicate about their materials, their products and components in a very frictionless way. We always have the right information to reintroduce assets and materials back into the economy as often as possible.
By transforming that linear process into a circular process, we have a much better understanding of the impact of our actions in the environment and vice versa.
Within a circular economy, the idea is to look at the lifetime of a product in a more holistic way.
As we better understand the connection between what happened in the economy and its impact in the environment, we're starting to understand this as a big network, a network in which the economy is part of our larger natural ecosystem.
Traceability and the ability to measure and understand what's happening in a supply chain will enable us to prove that pledges towards carbon neutral supply chains are actually happening. And once you can measure it, then you can also start acting on that.
We have a project at the moment on traceability of rare earth materials in the form of permanent magnets. Permanent magnets are critical for the electric motor. If we look at the Porsche project that we've been working on, they've chosen Porsche Taycan, which is an electric vehicle. One of the biggest challenges at end of life is that permanent magnets come in a mixed bag. The end of life recycler don't know the quality of the original material, they don't know how they can resell it. They need information about how that magnet has been produced. They need to know what's the material composition of that magnet, how can they recover it, what's the grade, what's the quality of the material that's in front of them. If Porsche can design the car in a way that that can be taken out, refurbished, repaired, remanufactured, recovered end of life, we can meet the goal of end-to-end traceability and product lifetime extension and material recovery.
Rare earth materials are really enablers of very many of today's technology. There's a really huge challenge for supply to keep up with demand because of its increasing use in a lot of our low-carbon technologies like electric cars and wind turbines. Less than 1% of the rare earths are actually recycled at the end of life. They're really super elements with amazing properties. It's really important that we keep these things in use and that we catch the rare earths at the end of use because they're such important materials in the energy transition. We have to be able to track where the materials that are being used in components or cars, products are coming from. And we've got to be able to do that right from the mine or the recycling centre all the way through the multiple steps of production into the final products.
Our vision is to really work towards open protocols in the very same way as, for example, email works. Everybody uses their own email client, whether it's Gmail or Microsoft Outlook or something else that you've just designed in your garage.
The specifics to the circularized system and how we balance the transparency and traceability is by operating on a public, open blockchain system.
Companies can refer to a shared ledger with state of information and trust that that information is correct and not manipulated with. So that's the vision of bringing traceability to a global scale, an open protocol driven by a public blockchain infrastructure that anybody can use, is non-proprietary, and different solutions can lock into it.
If we want to actually implement circular economy, we have to work on a global scale. If we are able to handle products smarter, we might be able to manage resources and waste in a better way, and most importantly, make sure that this does not become a problem that we are shifting among countries, but where we find a solution that works for all countries in the world.
The main ambition is to really leave a world behind where there's no waste, everything is a resource, and you design the economy and the system in a proper way. It makes a lot more sense for the economy, but as well as for the environment.
What would a kitchen look like if it didn't have a bin? Is that a possibility? A third of all food from farm to fork is never eaten. Every commercial kitchen is going to waste food as a natural byproduct of the production process of preparing food at scale. But we need an urgent focus on this issue to have a chance of reducing it. We need to challenge the status quo. We need to point the most powerful technology and the advancements that we have at our disposal. And if we do so, I'm optimistic that we could really have a chance of halving food waste worldwide. What's stopping you from realizing the opportunity that reducing food waste presents? I've been with Winnow for 10 years, and honestly, I didn't expect to be curiously looking in bins for that amount of my career. I'm David Jackson, I'm the Director of Marketing and Public Affairs at Winnow. So at Winnow, we develop AI tools to help chefs run more profitable and sustainable kitchens by cutting food waste in half. Food is precious, food is life, food brings us together. That's why everybody at Winnow is bonded in a mission to try and reduce food waste across the whole hospitality sector. Chefs don't have time to manually key in or use spreadsheets or even pen and paper to measure food waste in their kitchens. So we solved that problem with artificial intelligence. Winnow works by putting effectively a supercomputer into the kitchen. The field of AI that we work in is computer vision, so we're teaching a machine to see the food as it's being thrown away in real time. We've banked up over 320 million food waste images from kitchens around the world. We've used that data set to train an AI model to be able to recognize food as it's thrown away. Our AI will then do all the hard work and record exactly what was thrown away, the weight and the cost. And then we are able to give teams insights that we know can materially reduce food waste in these kitchens while doing the right thing for their business and also the planet. So we have a test rig here. We have a plastic in this case, but a piece of corn on the cob that unfortunately has to be thrown away. So it goes into the bin. The system will take a picture, and we call this throw and go. So the user throws the food into the bin, the AI identifies that it's corn on the cob, allocates a cost to that item. We aggregate all of those transactions over the course of service, and the next day the team will get a report that pinpoints exactly where food waste occurred and where they should focus to drive it down. We say what gets measured gets managed. Food waste is just really difficult to measure, and so using technology like Winnow can help accelerate change by giving precise measurement of where food waste occurs and crucially what it's costing them as a business. From a planetary perspective, if food waste was a country, it would be the third largest emitter of greenhouse gas emissions after America and China. That's because when food waste goes into landfill, it creates methane, which can be up to 80 times more potent as a greenhouse gas compared to carbon dioxide. It costs the economy about $1 trillion every year of lost output. With Winnow, we focus on the hospitality sector, where somewhere in the region of $100 billion worth of food is wasted every year. Now you can look at that as a big problem, but we prefer to look at it as an opportunity. Today Winnow is saving somewhere in the region of 87,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent. To put that into context, that's enough energy to power the homes of a small town for an entire year. And typically a site using Winnow could expect to save tens of thousands of dollars within the first year. Winnow works all over the world with the likes of Hilton, Marriott, Accor, IKEA, in all of their customer restaurants, food service businesses like ISS and Compass Group, and many, many others in almost 3,000 locations. A great win for Marriott and for the fight against food waste came here in the UK just this year. Marriott UK and Ireland announced that food waste had been cut by 25% across over 50 hotels. Winnow works internationally with Hilton hotels. One notable initiative was the Green Breakfast Project, which aimed to reduce food waste at the breakfast buffet. Almost all hotels have breakfast, and unfortunately it's a source of food waste. We were able to cut post-consumer waste during that just 4 months by over 60%, and that's something that we're now looking at scaling up across the rest of Hilton worldwide. Hilton, in some of their hotels, will have a bin-free Monday, where the team literally remove all of the bins, and the team have to use everything that is in the kitchen. It's a mindset shift, it needs training and culture change. So innovation has a massive role in solving the problem of food waste. And with the advent of technologies like AI, we should be pointing that new power at this really significant problem. I would like to see a future where every kitchen is able to benefit from this type of technology. That we make a material reduction in the food that's being wasted in our restaurants, in our hotels, and the sector at large, and that we inspire the rest of the world and us in our homes to make changes that ultimately see food waste reduced by half, which we so desperately need. Food is too valuable to waste, and we've set ourselves a big goal to be saving $1 billion worth of food every year. Cross-sector collaboration is crucial if we're going to have a chance. We need businesses, innovation, NGOs and the public at large to come together and collaborate to deliver a reduction in food waste worldwide. The good news is this problem is man-made and it's eminently solvable if we can all come together. Food waste is one of the defining problems of our time. If we're serious about overcoming the challenges that are presented to us in real terms because of the climate emergency, we have to solve the food waste problem. The hospitality sector has a massive role in driving down food waste, not only in commercial kitchens, in restaurants, hotels, but in terms of changing the way that we all think about food. Chefs are tastemakers, and our experience working with brilliant, talented chefs all over the world is that nobody wants to throw food away. And if we give people the tools and the information and the knowledge, that we can all have a material impact on this problem.
Like all plants, trees capture carbon dioxide directly from the atmosphere, and they use that carbon to grow. But in the course of their lifetime, they also pump a lot of that carbon into the soil, where that carbon feeds a microbial community that traps that carbon within the ecosystem for hundreds or even thousands of years. And that means these ecosystems are really important for trapping carbon away from the atmosphere and limiting climate change.
It's important to restore land for many reasons and at many scales. I think often the narrative goes big. Restoration can be a huge part of tackling climate change. It's an incredibly important solution to this global challenge that we face. I'm Clara Rowe, and I am Restore's CEO. Restore is a new open data platform, and fundamentally, our mission is to enable and to accelerate the global movement to restore Earth's ecosystems.
I'm Tom Crowther. I'm an ecologist studying in ETH Zurich, working on global ecosystem ecology. Restore is almost like a Google Maps, but for restoration. So you don't see hairdressers and shops, but you see restoration projects and nurseries of trees where you can engage with people to help in the restoration movement.
It was founded by the Crowther Lab at ETH Zurich and co-developed together with Google.
Crowther Lab uses Earth Engine, and as they were developing their global maps, they ended up needing some help trying to get those things to scale. My name's Noel Gorlick. I'm a software engineer at Google, and I'm one of the co-founders on Google Earth Engine. We built Earth Engine so that all the labs around the world that are all repeating that same effort, trying to process that data and get it ready to use, don't have to do it anymore. We do it once, and all the people that want to use it then benefit from it being already done. Restoration projects are going on all over the world, and the planting is just step one. In a lot of cases, the trees may grow, they may not grow. The trees may be completely unseen after they've been planted. No one may be near them, so they might not know how they're doing. If you plant a bunch of trees but none of them survive, that doesn't really help the restoration movement. So with continuous monitoring with satellite data, you're able to collect information from all these places and help each individual project separately, but globally at the same time.
We work with data that was produced from a lot of different researchers from all around the world. What we then do is train machine learning models based on this data to detect the environmental drivers and the relationships between the data and our interested variable. For example, tree carbon or soil organic carbon. We can go back in time and see how did the plot actually look like 20 years ago and see maybe when there was, for example, a disturbance, such as logging. So we see what the legacy actually is of a plot.
I really like to think about the local benefits that it has, and the benefits that it has for local communities who are on the coast and they need to buffer from floods, or the farming communities who are facing droughts and are facing changing seasons and need more coverage of the soil.
We exist in isolation from nature. A few years ago, before the internet existed, all of our knowledge was stored in books and clever people's minds, and then this internet existed. We suddenly had access to all the world's knowledge, and we started learning together. A few years later, we had Google Maps, and suddenly we could now see where we exist in relation to the rest of the world. But we are still entirely disconnected from nature.
Our hope for Restore is that it changes everyone's conception of how they interact with nature. Just like Google Maps changed the way many of us saw ourselves in space, we want Restore to change the way that we see ourselves in nature. We think about our backyards differently because we suddenly think about the carbon that is in them.
We simply could not continue surviving without all of the plants that trap carbon out of the atmosphere, the microbes that recycle those nutrients, the birds, the animals that fertilize those plants and that protect our ecosystems. So bringing back nature is not only essential to preventing the global threats that we face right now, they're essential for our continued happiness and well-being.
Many people are aware of the fundamental dangers of loss of habitats, of the degradation of nature. I think many people don't know what to do about that. And I think many people don't know how they are contributing to it, or if they do, they don't know what to do about that. Restore's not going to fix all of that, but Restore can be a piece of helping you see where your impact is, and it can be a piece of empowering the people who are doing that work of restoring Earth's ecosystems on the ground, making that more mainstream, making that easier to do, making that more successful, and making everyone connected there.
We have a really amazing opportunity with a piece of recently clear-felled land in the highlands. We're aiming to restore habitats on site, to reintroduce locally extinct species, and inspire people to engage in the natural environment.
A natural capital is a way of looking at the world not as a resource to be extracted, but as an asset to be managed, much as we manage our financial capital. The Natural Capital Laboratory is using the latest technology to bring this approach to a rewilding project in the Scottish Highlands.
I'm Robert Spencer. I'm Head of Sustainable Development at AECOM. So the goal of the Natural Capital Laboratory is to create a body of knowledge and evidence and tools and techniques for understanding how business, industry and infrastructure can interact with nature in a more fruitful way. So we've got the three legs of the stool: AECOM, the Lifescape project, and the landowners, Amelia and Roger, who had this vision to rewild an area of land. They acquired a place up in Scotland, 100-acre site, and we're working with them now as part of the Natural Capital Laboratory. The environmental consultancy sector is going through a very significant transition at the moment. Many of our clients have set themselves targets to make better decisions in future about how they interact with nature. Instead of business and industry and infrastructure being over here and nature being over there, we are very much coming together. That will enable much better investment decisions and ongoing daily business decisions. And the two key tools that we're using is remote sensing using satellite data and using drones to also capture parts of the spectrum that you can't see with the naked eye. We're putting all that data together in a way that creates a whole picture of what's going on with the natural systems at that site. What we want to do is visualize and make it immediately accessible. The usual way of presenting a natural capital assessment is a rather dry series of Excel spreadsheets. Our approach is to make that much more accessible. We've set up a social and natural capital dashboard. It's an interactive, visually engaging way of understanding the natural systems and how society can interact and benefit from them.
We've also developed a digital twin of the site, which allows us to really explore different scenarios of land management and different restoration activities without actually having to undertake any activities on the ground. We have some really exciting plans for year two with the use of environmental DNA techniques to better kind of understand and explore what types of species are on site. You essentially take soil samples or water samples, and through laboratory analysis, you're able to kind of pick up all of the different DNA that's within that.
One of the key things we want to do in the coming year is actually focus much more on the ways in which we can engage local community stakeholders in the social value of large expanses of natural capital and understanding natural capital assets.
We have started to develop virtual reality experiences to show people within the local community who really will be inheriting the land after the Natural Capital Lab is done, what site management activities we're undertaking, and also what different ecological features will look like for that site.
One of the areas that we want to move into is also looking at international partnerships as well to replicate this model more widely in different countries and different geographies and different habitat and whole ecosystems.
We're sharing all of these findings so that people who are working on larger scale projects can kind of learn from what we're doing to see what kind of pieces they want to take on board.
This work at the Natural Capital Laboratory is a tiny contribution to our understanding globally of how humans and society can interact much better with natural systems and have a better relationship with wildlife and biodiversity going forward. We've got a lot planned. We've only been going for a year at the site, but there's so much more to do. Being able to be involved in a project like this is really a privilege.
We cannot forget that our material world is very carbon-centric. 30% of the carbon is actually used to make the things we use every day. Your seat cushions, your tires, your sneakers. So the reality is that we need to reduce the emissions from every aspect of our daily lives. And therefore, we need to transition all of our materials to some type of recycling. We will always need carbon for our materials. If we simply bury our carbon problem, we will be destined to always depend and rely on a fossil carbon economy. I imagine a future where there is no such thing as waste. I imagine a future where a waste gas at a steel mill can be the dash in a car. These are the things we're imagining, but more importantly, these are the things we're making possible. We're already doing it. My name is Jennifer Holmgren and I'm the CEO of Lancetech. Lancetech is a company that uses waste carbon and converts that to the products we use in our daily lives. The key mission of Lancetech is to transition our currently linear economy where we extract carbon from the ground, use it, and then throw it away, to an economy where carbon that's already above ground is converted to the things we need, therefore creating a circular carbon economy, giving carbon that's already been used a second chance from which we can create other products. I don't think humanity will survive in its current state. We're already starting to see the impact of climate change. The fashion industry accounts for 8% of global carbon emissions. Aviation accounts for 2 to 3%. We have to stop. I'd prefer to stop by finding a different way to make the things we want and need. Doing nothing is not an option. It's already too late to do nothing. Carbon capture and storage is going to become extremely important because we have put so much carbon in our atmosphere that we literally need to stop. When it comes to fashion, I think people are realizing that there needs to be a real transition to new materials. Where we come at it is we make a material that looks just like the materials made from virgin fossil carbon, but instead we make it from recycled carbon. We're inspired by nature because nature wastes nothing. The way our process works is just like a brewery. Instead of using sugar and yeast, what we do is we use these waste gases that are then converted to ethanol with a bacteria. This ethanol is then put into the conventional petrochem supply chain that allows you to make polyester, and then that polyester yarn is provided to our brand partners who are able to convert it into dresses and things we use every day. This is a pair of H&M training tights. And the polyester here was made from a recycled emission at a steel mill. Imagine this was going to be pollution, and instead it's a pair of running pants. This is a Zara dress, an Adidas jacket, and a Craighopper's fleece, which, by the way, has my recycled dog as well. The apparel industry is also quite wasteful. One of the things that carbon recycling will do is it will end this end-of-life waste. So a future where your running sneakers become tires, or your tires become your dress, these are the things we're imagining. One of the things that I think is a big misconception about reuse is that reuse is not permanent. Every time I reuse a carbon atom that's already out of the ground, I keep another permanently in the ground where it belongs. We're capturing the carbon, so we're not emitting. We're making products which further keeps carbon in the ground, because all these products are going to be bought anyways, but they're going to be made from carbon that's in the ground. So we're actually solving two problems at once. Let's take little steps every day to solve our problem, because my biggest fear is that those perfect solutions, those home runs, they're decades away no matter what we do. And if we don't make progress today, we're going to have a really big problem. For us, the immediate next steps are to deploy. We just need to deploy everywhere where our technology fits. And as we deploy, the costs will come down and will allow us to deploy even more. We need people to say, I want to buy the first carbon recycling unit. I know it's more expensive, but I will enable a future that is better by doing that. We need people to be more willing to accept risk, and we need to stop being the department of no. Every new solution is met with a no. It may not work. What am I going to do if it doesn't work? What we need is a cost of carbon, a cost of externalities, and a way to move things forward more quickly. We do need to reset the rules. We're competing with an industry that's been around for 150 years. I justify the short-term cost of the transition because I know what the short-term impact of not transitioning is. We're going to pay for this either in the cost of the transition or in the cost of the human tragedy that we're witnessing every single day. My hope for the future is that the world realizes very, very quickly that our current carbon economy is having a massive effect, and that we can't just afford to waste. People tell me that we'll figure it out. The question is, how many lives will be lost between now and the time we figure it out? We have to realize that we have to change everything, from fuels to materials that we use in our daily lives. Everything has to change, and we have to become more like nature. We need to waste nothing. We need to waste nothing.
The world is a magnificent ecosystem that knows how to take care of its own problems. It always seeks equilibrium. The issue with carbon is no different.
Biomimicry is this idea that, we do synthetically what nature does itself. So you're trying to essentially mimic or replicate some sort of a biological process. So effectively you're using a natural template. The oceans are by far the largest sink for carbon dioxide that we have. 25 to 30% of all of the carbon dioxide that humans emit into the atmosphere is removed and stored by the oceans year upon year. I think we need to be activating and leveraging the ocean's storage capacity for carbon dioxide. What Aquatic is based on is actually just leveraging a very large natural system and providing a synthetic intervention to it.
It's the same chemistry as what nature does, only 99,000 times faster.
We're taking a very natural process, we're bringing it into an industrial facility, we're accelerating it with the provision of electricity, and doing carbon dioxide removal and hydrogen production all at the same time.
The Earth as a closed system has a fixed amount of carbon. The carbon cycle is the process by which carbon continually travels to and from the atmosphere into the oceans, into the land sinks. Some of this carbon is also stored as fossil fuels. And when we burn those fossil fuels, what happens is we're releasing this vast amount of carbon back into the atmosphere. It changes the fluxes of carbon between the different sinks, and this could have impacts in ecosystems. So humans emit more than 37 billion tons of CO2 per year, and this is a huge number that has big impacts in our ecosystems. The oceans regulate the Earth's temperature, and currently it removes about 30% of our annual CO2 emissions from our industrial processes. That has side effects, so that means that all of this CO2 that is being absorbed by the ocean causes what we call ocean acidification, where the pH of the ocean is decreasing, which is harmful to ecosystems.
So the question that we were trying to ask is, how do you really exploit and activate the ocean's capacity for carbon dioxide storage, but without inducing acidification? The idea behind Aquatic is really quite simple.
The process starts with seawater intake. So the seawater is fed into electrolyzers.
You use electricity to break seawater into acid and base. You use the base to be able to absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, but also remove it from the ocean simultaneously.
And then this is the analyte. We react rock with this acid. So it will neutralize all of the acidity so that we avoid any degassing that could potentially happen if you decrease the pH. We mix these two streams together before we discharge it back into the ocean, where the carbon that we've removed is going to be permanently stored.
What this allows you to do is to reduce the atmospheric accumulation of CO2, store it in the oceans, and activate the ocean's capacity very substantially to be able to hold CO2 within it.
In addition to carbon dioxide removal, one of our products is hydrogen, specifically green hydrogen, which is an alternative source of energy. And this is energy that is produced without fossil fuels. This is something that we could use to offset the energy costs within the plant and then sell it to other industries as a renewable energy source.
What we have here, in fact, is a technology solution that could help us in a meaningfully large way both solve the climate crisis, but simultaneously to produce green hydrogen at a scale that's big enough to provide energy supplies to displace fossil fuels all around the world, which is going to be a really important part of how we actually get away from ongoing climate change.
Our goal is to produce green hydrogen at a rate at which carbon dioxide removal is free, based on the sale of hydrogen from our process.
The plant that we're building now in Singapore is the world's largest ocean-based carbon removal facility. We've thought about building these systems to be perfectly modular. And what that means is you scale up by numbering up units. It's not by building bigger and bigger plants. And this is, I think, fundamentally different from what we've done over the course of the Industrial Revolution so far. The measurement of carbon dioxide removal is particularly important because it's important to try and identify the value of a carbon credit that you would generate. It delivers confidence to both the buyer but to the community at large that you are accomplishing what you said you would do. The solution of climate change is a time-bound problem that needs to happen in a matter of decades. And so you don't have time to wait for natural cycles to do what they need to do. We need to actually exert engineering interventions to make them happen at a scale that's relevant but also impactful.
I think that there's been a lot of support from government, from industry, and that really validates the technology that we're moving in the right direction.
We've come a really long way from doing this in a thimbleful of seawater, so to speak, in a laboratory. It's one of these things where failure is not an option.
By 2050, there'll be 3 billion new people on this planet. In order to house them, we're going to be building the equivalent of a city for 1 million people every 5 days.
One of the biggest problems with carbon emissions in the world are urban environments and the building products that we make. The building industry is almost the bullseye of hitting carbon for the world. The new buildings, the roads, the airports, the bridges, the sidewalks. We want to lessen the ecological footprint of these new cities we're making.
So the question is, how can you design so that our buildings, the places where we live, work, and play, start to have the same ecological performance as the wildland next door?
Buildings can be a wonderful sink for all that CO2.
Concrete is about 8% of global emissions. Blue Planet is capturing that CO2 at low energy and utilizing it as an ingredient in a product that we need.
The closest thing to what we do is the formation of a lobster shell. So you know how lobsters shed their skeleton to grow and then remineralize a very thick skeleton? Well, they do that in a few hours. It's the exact same mineral that we use, that we make here. At Blue Planet, we capture the CO2 and we turn it into limestone. Limestone is the skeletons of marine organisms, and we're making synthetic limestone. So by capturing CO2, turning it into limestone or calcium carbonate, we have the capability of permanently sequestering most of the carbon in the atmosphere.
Calcium carbonate is what you put in cement and in concrete, and it's what you put in aggregate that they make roads with, gravels and things like that. And most concrete, in its manufacture, it emits carbon dioxide. So this actually sequesters it.
Our inputs are carbon dioxide, and there are a lot of different sources of carbon dioxide. Power plants alone put out about 15 billion tons of carbon a year. But industrial plants like cement plants and steel mills are also putting out quite a bit of CO2.
See that pipe coming out of the ground? That's the flue gas pipe bringing flue gas from the power plant where the CO2 would have gone into the atmosphere. So we're capturing the CO2 and forms a sort of a milky material that's got calcium in it, and it's got ammonia. Then it goes through a filtration process, and it comes out the back as rock. And we're using these rock as aggregate in the concrete. But these are 44% carbon dioxide that's permanently crystallized.
It's very exciting. When Blue Planet captures that CO2, put it in concrete, it is permanently sequestered.
The process works in the local circular economy. We can take old concrete, instead of using it as landfill, and repurpose it. And we're dissolving the calcium oxide out of it. And we take that calcium-bearing solution to go make the carbon-captured product. And then we take the remaining material, which is the original sand and gravel, back to the market to be reused for new buildings. So instead of mining new rock up in British Columbia and shipping it down here, by recycling the old concrete that would have been landfilled, we're saving thousands of miles of transportation and hundreds of acres of open pit mining of rock.
Aggregate is the second most used substance on Earth. So it's a way to have an urban quarry of recycled, sequestered CO2 in a circular fashion. Blue Planet will be all over the world with factories and manufacturing plants. Ideally, we'll replicate this kind of water, port, near CO2 sources, near the built environment with large demand for our product around the world. So we're going after the concrete industry, but in a way we can play with the steel industry as well, because we can capture their CO2 and we can also use their slag as a geomass and put them all together. We can make all buildings better. We can make them net zero into the regenerative. We can capture the water. We can also use new materials and new technologies. We have to change the entire design, construction, and operation practice.
Sometimes we can make a whole building carbon negative, even though it's got heating and cooling. And most electric power in the world is used for air conditioning. And now we're looking at really reflective materials, and you see it in pearl. It's called luster. And it turns out that reflects a lot of light. So if you can make a roof out of these highly reflective materials, you can dramatically lower the amount of air conditioning. So if you don't heat it up as much, you don't have to cool it down as much. And now we're looking at reflective pavements as well. And so it's a whole new movement. It's called the Cool Cities movement.
We have to learn to do what all other organisms have learned to do. You know, look around and use local materials and then reuse and recycle those materials over and over again.
We can create a better, sustainable built environment and make sure the impact is regenerative.
The problem with excess CO2 in the atmosphere is that it's causing climate change. Every year we put gigatons of CO2 in the atmosphere, the equivalent of launching about 4.5 million tons per hour. And a ton is the weight of a small car. And the legacy CO2 is 95% of the problem. The reality is that we actually only have about 7 years left in the carbon budget before we hit 1.5 degrees of global warming. It's actually going to cost us much more to react to the impacts of excess CO2 and the changes in our climate, like wildfires and hurricanes. We need to move really quickly to try to restore the carbon balance.
We are not developing carbon capture remotely fast enough to meet our climate goals. We're aiming for 100% capture 1 ton of CO2 for every ton generated by continued use of fossil fuels by mid-century. We are now at 0.1%, and that fraction is barely increasing. I'm Miles Allen, a professor of geosystem science and in the Department of Physics. I'm also the director of Oxford Net Zero. Well, in the short term, we've got to reduce emissions, but in the longer term, we've got to recognize that we have to stop climate change before the world stops using fossil fuels. If you want to stop fossil fuels from causing global warming, you need carbon capture. We're going to need air capture on a massive scale within a few decades' time, because we won't be able to do this by simply planting trees. There isn't the land, there isn't the water available to do that.
My name is Laurie Gaytray. I am a vice president of business development at Carbon Engineering. The new tool that we bring to the Climate Toolbox is a technology called direct air capture.
Direct air capture is a technology that strips CO2 directly out of the atmosphere. My name is Steve Oldham, and I'm the CEO of Carbon Engineering. We use chemical processes, chemical reactions, and standard industrial equipment to remove CO2 at a very large scale. Our standard plants are at 1 megaton of atmospheric CO2 per year, and that is the equivalent of the work of about 40 million trees in capturing CO2. So this is Carbon Engineering's pilot plant here in British Columbia in Canada. This is the first step of our process. We call it an air contactor. Think of a large fan. The fan pulls air in, and then the air goes across a filter. So this is an example of the type of filter we use. It's made out of PVC. PVC is very cheap, very easy to get at large scale, and has very long durations. The air comes through this way, and then this way we drip a chemical compound through the filter. And at the bottom you end up with a liquid that now has a large amount of CO2 in it. Next we put it inside a pellet reactor. And from that process We make small little pellets of calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is seashells. This is CO2 captured directly out of the atmosphere. Next, we put them in a calciner. Calciners are used in the iron ore industry. Essentially, they heat these pellets up to a very high temperature, about 900 degrees C. When that happens, the pellets break up and they release a stream of carbon dioxide gas. And that carbon dioxide gas is what we then use to either make a fuel or we bury it back underground again. But the real elegant thing about carbon engineering's process is that we remake the chemicals that we've used as we proceed along with extracting CO2. We also use our captured CO2 to make synthetic crude. So you'll notice, compared to gasoline, compared to crude that comes out of the ground, this is completely clear. When you burn this inside your car, it's clean burning. And when the fuel is carbon neutral, you made the vehicle carbon neutral. The energy transition is going to take time, but we don't have time to wait to start addressing climate change. We all have to remember that the size of the carbon problem is simply enormous, and any one solution just doesn't have the capacity to deal with it.
Climate experts estimate that we're going to need to pull 10 to 20 gigatons of CO2 out of the atmosphere through direct air capture by the time we get to 2050. So we need to have techniques and tools to be able to not just decarbonize, but also remove some of that legacy CO2 to get back to safe levels of CO2 in the atmosphere.
Where does carbon engineering fit into that? We provide a backstop. We have the ability to eliminate any emission, no matter what type it is, where it comes from, and to any extent required.
We use about 100 times less land and about 200 times less water than biological solutions to capture carbon. The inputs to our process are simply air, water, and energy. And there's no practical limitation to the number of sites we can put this new clean infrastructure in around the world. Our plans to commercialize the technology, now that it's ready and it's feasible and affordable, are to take it to scale as quickly as we can. Our first and final step up to full scale is the plant that we're building in the Permian Basin. What we're looking at here is a rendering of that plant. It has all the same elements in it, our direct air contactors, the calciner, the pellet reactors, all implemented at full commercial scale, which will capture 1 million tons of atmospheric CO2 every year.
We welcome more innovation, we welcome more brilliant minds, because this problem is going to affect every single person on the planet.
Global warming is not a necessary evil at all. We could fix it. Carbon engineering is undoubtedly pioneering the future, and the only way we will get global temperatures back down again is by physically taking that carbon dioxide back out of the atmosphere.
Carbon engineering is a scalable, affordable, feasible solution to the climate problem. And as a mom, I want to give back future generations a healthy planet with a safe amount of atmospheric CO2.
The challenge for the fertilizer industry is the fact that we have a very carbon-intensive technology which is vital for growing food. But also we know that world leaders have now accepted the fact that we are behind the 8 ball and we need to catch up fast. Fertilizer production globally is broadly the same. Really, they are using processes that are about 70 years old. Non-organic fertilizer has a huge carbon footprint.
We need to reduce the emissions coming from the energy and industrial sectors if we are to reach net zero. CCM's technology captures carbon dioxide and other waste streams and either stores the captured material or converts it into resources like fertilizer or plastics.
I'm going to borrow the quote from Mahatma Gandhi, "Waste is only a resource in the wrong place." That is the core tenet to what we do. I'm Pavel Kishlevsky, Chief Executive of CCM Technologies. Well, we have a fairly strange origin in the fact that Professor Peter Hammond and I were parents at the same school. My background is finance, his is a chemical engineer, and it was the combination of those two skill sets that founded the company back in 2011. When Peter and I founded the company, his intellectual property, which he's been developing over 25 years, is around CO2. But interestingly, he was looking at it as a solution for some of the engineering challenges that he was solving for big companies. And he turned his mind to suddenly realize that actually there was a way of capturing the CO2, the devil incarnate, and actually using that for a profitable and sensible method.
It's got to be better, it's got to be as easy to use, and it's got to be cheaper. And we've appreciated that from the beginning. There was a sort of circularity developing in the whole process, and that led on very rapidly to us appreciating that if we could take materials from their end of life within waste and actually reintroduce them to the beginning of the cycle, that would be a really good process. Conventional nitrogen fertilizer production in particular is very energy intensive.
In some cases, 4, 5, 6, 7 tons of emissions of CO2 for 1 ton of fertilizer.
Whereas our materials are neutral in that sense.
CCM is able to produce fertilizers with a 0 carbon footprint, or even potentially climate positive, i.e. it's removing carbon from the atmosphere. The equipment you can see behind us is relatively straightforward. It's a mixing and blending technology, but is around really 3 inputs.
Those are fibrous materials, any sustainable source really.
So grass, straw, wood chip, or digestate cake.
Ammonia, which is recovered either from food or animal waste streams. Then carbon dioxide, which is generally recovered in our case from exhaust streams.
And it's those 3 components which are currently considered waste that we can turn into something that's both valuable and also good for the environment. Wastewater is a very good example. At the moment, they are discharging phosphorus and ammonia into the groundwater. So rather than have them as a waste, recycle them back in and use them as the core nutrients to build fertilizer with 0 carbon footprint. The key part of CCM's process is to deliver the farmer a fertilizer he actually wants and needs. So it's customizable to its nutrient ingredients. We have a solution that can be put to the rice crops, the largest crop in the world, but also sub-Saharan Africa as well, where clearly soil temperature is a big issue. We're also putting both organic matter and carbon in the form of calcium carbonate into the soil. So we're putting it back where it started from and closing the cycle. Another of Peter's real tenets is to ensure that the price point of the product is at least the same as the current environment, if not slightly better.
Then you can actually mobilize agriculture as a massive tool in fixing the environment.
We have to create a better climate and a better world for my grandchildren and everybody else's grandchildren.
Agriculture is using a range of finite resources which will run out. Our process will allow the extension of those finite resources, but also in recovering them from waste materials, it actually creates a new resource base, but without changing the fundamental ways in which you deliver agricultural production.
Carbon capture, storage, and utilization is a set of technologies that involve capturing carbon dioxide either from large emission sources, such as power plants or industrial complexes, or from the atmosphere itself. It involves storing the CO2 deep underground, mostly in geological formations that are 1 kilometer under the surface of the Earth, or converting into product, for example, putting it into cement. Using carbon capture and storage is critically important to significantly, dramatically reduce emissions today. My name is Galoran Turan, and I'm the Chief Impact Officer at the Global Carbon Capture and Storage Institute. The Institute is an international climate think tank that aims to accelerate the deployment of carbon capture, removal, use and storage technologies around the world. We are backed by over 200 members. Our membership comprises of governments, got big businesses, big emitters, technology companies, NGOs and think tanks. We know that we're going to need every solution in order to tackle climate change, and carbon capture and storage is one of those. Since 2017, we're seeing a growth of almost 30% year on year in projects in operation, in construction, and in development. The science tells us we need to capture and store 1 billion tons by 2030 and 6 billion tons by 2050. Currently, we have 50 operational CCS facilities around the world that have capacity to capture and store around 50 million tons of CO2 per year. So massive scaling up is needed. Luckily, we know that we have more than enough geologic storage around the world. We can use captured carbon in making products. For example, if we can take the CO2 and use it to cure cement, we can make sure that CO2 stays in the cement for much longer periods of time, hundreds of years potentially. So from a climate point of view, it is really important that CO2 is stored durably in product. Carbon capture, utilization and storage, it's complicated, it's big, it's expensive, it takes a long time. Collaboration is crucial if we are to scale up carbon capture, use and storage. We need to have suitable business models for the private sector to invest in this technology. In order for us to tackle the climate crisis, there needs to be a price put on emissions. The governments need to put in place supportive policies that start with a carbon price. It can be a traded price, it can be a carbon tax, it can be a tax credit. It's really important that emission reductions are remunerated so that businesses are incentivized to do so. How can carbon capture, use and storage be integrated into carbon markets? It already is. We're already starting to see companies like Microsoft and Stripe buying carbon dioxide removal credits from companies that are capturing CO2 from the atmosphere. So I think we need to have increased demand for low carbon products. And in that, low carbon cement, low carbon steel, putting CCS to cement can significantly increase the cost of cement. However, when we talk about the cost of a building, that cost increase actually is minimal. We're talking about maybe 1 to 2%. We currently have 50 facilities, large-scale commercial facilities in operation. We have 46 under construction, and we've got more than 500 facilities in different stages in the development pipeline. When we look at the world map today and when we plot CCUS facilities on the world map, we see a lot of concentration in North America, Europe, Australia, in Southeast Asia, but we don't see almost any dots in Africa or in Latin America. Certainly, the global south needs to come to the table. And in order to do that, again, collaboration is key between developed countries and between the global south. If we are to scale up from where we are today to where we need to be, we will need an investment in the magnitude of $1 trillion potentially or more between now and 2050. I know this sounds like a large number, but I come back to the importance of living in a habitable world. CCUS is not and cannot be a cop-out or a fig leaf for the industry. We'll need to reduce our emissions significantly, and CCUS is an enabler of that. But that there's no getting away from the fact that emitting as we did cannot be feasible going forward. We have the technology. We know that we have ample, safe storage around the world. We've got all the ingredients that we need in order to scale up CCUS. What we need is just, in my view, more ambition.